the fires of a culture that praises the unrighteous and celebrates mediocrity. It's time for a new age, when power to tell stories of the future will be in the hands of the people. Rise up! Become the culture! Hail the Iron Age! Howdy do! Here we have myself, the Ultimate Kahuna, and joining me today for the episode 4 of Iron Age Legends is Mr. Brian McCoppin.
I love that song. I get pumped up every time you play it.
Oh, dude, yeah. Evely killed it, honestly. And he says he's reworking some of the guitar notes on there with a different tuning system, and dude, I'm so excited.
I love it. I love him so much.
Oh, it's fantastic, man. So, sir, thank you so much for joining me. It's always a little tricky when people live in different time zones. You're all the way back there in the little chunk of America. Some people say we should chisel off, but you know,
the Conch Republic.
Oh yeah.
Those who know, Florida. Yes.
Oh, it's fantastic, man. But sir, you are on here, and as I've stipulated before, there are 2 conditions for being on Iron Age Legends. One of them being oh, it's already going off the rails. That's what I like, though. Condition 1: I have to respect you and your work. I have to have, and then number 2: I have to actually have read, listened to, or enjoyed your work in some way. And while I haven't seen your modeling or your movies or anything of that, I have read your book, Record of the Paladins, Book of Oliver. And that brings me to one of my first questions, actually. And that is, are you planning, like, is that how it's going to work with this series going forward? Is this going to be the Book of Oliver and then a different book as well, like the book of each character? Is that kind of what you had planned there?
Yes. So Book of Oliver number 1. Book of Yvonne and Yvois comes out as soon as the editor's done with it. So pretty soon, actually. But yeah, book 1's about our main POV character for the 12-book series, Oliver.
Oh, okay. So Oliver is going to be the main POV character going forward as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So that how did you kind of come to that decision with this series? Obviously, because you have the 12 different paladins, and in theory, you could have said, well, we could have one book, like each book could be from the perspective of their, named character.
Yeah, and it's the different books, much like Oliver, is going to tell the backstory of the 12 paladins, and their chapters will be from their POV. And there are times when the chapter is from their POV, but at sometimes Oliver is the main POV character. He's kind of the, I would say, faceless everyman that you kind of attach onto. His power is visual. You're seeing the story through his eyes in many ways, having a visual prowess.
That's a great little detail, man. Yeah. And that's something interesting too. I think this book holds a lot. It should appeal to a lot of different people for a variety of reasons. But just speaking personally, as a man, as a father, as someone whose dad is still alive, this book really hits a lot of notes that resonate with me personally, and I really appreciated that kind of aspect of the storytelling. And not to say that a woman couldn't enjoy it for a similar reason, but I can only speak to my own experience. But I really enjoyed that aspect of the story too.
Yeah, the feedback I get is the Oliver Guerin relationship is probably the highlight of the book, and that's the hard.
That's what my dad said. Yeah.
So, book 2 is going to be a little harder to read because book 1's about accepting your place in the world. Oliver accepting who he is, and book 2 is going to be about forgiving yourself. So
that's rough.
The 2 main characters are going to be put through. I was even asking some people, "Is this grimdark yet?" Like we got there. They said, "Do they survive?" I said, "Yeah. It's probably not grimdark." Like, all right.
I would argue it won't be grimdark. Having Christian grimdark is kind of an oxymoron because the kind of 2 main facets of each is that like if you have faith, if you believe in God and Christ, and you believe who He says He is, and you love Him, you have hope in the future. You believe good, all things happen for good. And in grimdark, that's not really the case. It's a very nihilistic kind of worldview that's attached to that specific genre. Now, like everyone's like, "Oh, there's grim hope and grim this." I'm like, yeah, but if we're talking just grimdark, there's a contrary element there.
Yeah, and a little spoiler here, because that's not too much. The 2 paladins we meet in book 2 are not Christians.
Oh. I was wondering about that because, like, they were talking about it. They talk about in book 1. Spoiler: they talk about poor paladins in the book. They talk about some of the conditions that have to be met in order for a paladin to come into the world, and it doesn't say they have to be Christian. Basically, they have to come out from a marriage in wedlock where both were virgins until wedlock, and a bit more than that, but yeah, that's the basic condition. And they have to have at least part of the name has to coincide in some way, even a vague or a kind of transmuted way, which is
you're catching on.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
There's plenty of parents of faith whose kids are not Christians. So we need a story that can relate, because I don't want every story to be like, "Oh, here's the perfect family. Here's the I know Oliver was adopted, but he had an amazing father. Not all of us have parents. Yeah, not all of us have parents. So we need to have a story for those people too."
I know. Like I'm not an orphan, but and truth be told, I can't. Like that's one thing I can't really contemplate. Like in full, like I can put myself in another person's shoes, but it's very hard for me to put myself in the shoes of someone who didn't have the parents that I have growing up, because it's such a formative part of most people, whether they're there or not. That will have a big part in forming who you are.
Yeah, like my parents are still married, and that seems like the outlier now.
Really now for sure. Yeah, even my parents, they almost got a divorce. I don't mind telling people that it was a rough time, man, but literally God saved their marriage. It was quite an ordeal, but yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing. And like that's not to say like even his father figure in the course of the story, he's not a perfect guy. Like I don't know if people who have read the book, he may drink a wee bit of whiskey fairly often. Like,
that's his coping mechanism, to say the least.
It is, yeah. And
what's wrong with that?
I can't get too much into it without getting into spoilers. Rats, dang it! I almost spoiled it. Oh, but yeah, that's true too. That's true too. Also, you mentioned this isn't so much of a spoiler, like details of the paladins. There's a couple of rules. One of them is that Roland is always the first and always the last. So you son of a gun. He's gonna die at some point. I just know it.
Well, doesn't everybody die? Everybody dies. I mean,
everybody dies, but it's gonna be so sad.
Whether by cancer or old age or through combat, everybody dies.
Yeah. It's like Roland is the perspective, or Oliver's the perspective character, and book one is definitely his book, which helps with that. But it's just interesting because let's go like this. There we go. There we go. We don't want to get too close,
Ooh,
just like.
David.
Oh, it ain't right. Let's see who joined us in the chat. We have Herman who popped by earlier. We have Animation Overload and Sarah Piers Chella.
She's another author. She was actually one of my beta readers.
I've seen her name pop up a few different places. I'll have to check her out.
She has Harshest Dawn and a couple other books. Great book stories about
Harshest Dawn.
Post.
That sounds
not
dope.
like post apocalyptic, like post too many liberals America. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe the America she has in her books.
That sounds like right now. That sounds like a fantasy. Anyway,
so her story is fun.
No, that sound. It's a good title. You gotta have a good title for your story, and for you, it's interesting too. It's in the kind of plays on the kind of biblical theme even a bit more. A Record of the Paladins, the Book of Oliver, kind of reminds me. It's Book of Matthew, Book of John, all of that, and then or go with a more modern example, Book of Eli.
Yeah, and these are not to be saints per se, but it's kind of a version of that. We have sainthood. Yeah. I know I'm not Catholic per se, but I love many of the aspects they have, including sainthood and in canonizing people. So
I do too, to a point. I do have some criticism, but it's like everybody has criticism. There's a reason there's so many denominations in the world. Can we just agree on a couple basic things, and God will sort out the rest, man?
Book 10 is all about Garen. We get his backstory in book 10, and we meet the new Garen, because obviously the next generation has a Garen.
Oh, yeah.
Old Garen's backstory is, I've kind of written much of it. He is a former Catholic who now hates the Pope. Like, he's just like, So that's kind of where when I had my editors and readers asking about my faith, I said, I'm more evangelical, Protestant, I lean Baptist, non-denominational, but I didn't want that to bleed into my works. So a lot of people say it's a Catholic book. Well, Roland's Catholic. Melissa,
Roland's very Catholic, and Roland is anything Roland is. He is very of.
Yeah,
he's very large. He's very strong. Yo, Bat Sauce, what's up, brother? Thanks for coming by. I appreciate it, man. Brian, if I were a better planned person, I'd plan these kind of things on a day where there weren't 5 other streams going on at the same time.
It'll be on YouTube for perpetuity. So it's all right.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And I'm even looking into hiring an editor until I figure out my own editing to edit these things down and put them in more digestible chunks, so to say. Add a little flair to it.
You connected off Walter Wiggins through Twitter? Have you run across him?
He sounds like a Henson character, but no, I don't think I have. Walter Wiggins, man.
Some videos for me. He's pretty talented. I'll send him your way.
All right, yeah. Yeah, I have all the editing software and stuff that I need, but I haven't, before maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I had never owned a PC ever in my entire life.
Wow.
And so to this day, everything that I do is on my phone, and or almost everything anyway. It's a bit of an ordeal, but we'll figure it out, man. So here we go. What made you want to become an author? What made you decide you had a story to tell? What compelled you to do so?
Yeah, I like a lot of people who are outgoing and personable. I love engaging with people and telling the stories and talking to them. But to be a published author, it kind of started right at the time my oldest daughter was born, 15 plus years ago now. So I was a voracious reader. Like, the gifts my fiance at the time, wife at the time, would get me would be books. My favorite books were the Frank Herbert Dune books, Stephen King books.
Yeah.
So when Brian Herbert was releasing his sequels to Dune with Kevin J. Anderson, or was it Kevin J. Anderson? With Brian Herbert and some other author. And she would get a book would come out. She'd get it from me, I would read it in 2 days, and she'd get mad. I'm reading this book.
Why'd you read it so dang fast?
I paid $30 for that. I guess it's great. I love things. So
I appreciate it. I'll read it again.
then I tore through the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, where the first 3 books I thought were amazing, and then the last 4 were just garbage. I was like, man, you want the deep end here.
Yeah, Stephen King is such a hitter. He is such a hit or miss author.
Yeah,
honestly.
I agree. And I like his non-horror stuff a little better, like Green Mile.
Green Mile is a good book, dude.
Yeah.
Anyone who's like anyone who's like, oh, I hate his horror stuff. He's such a bad author. I'm like, read the Green Mile. Read it. Try some of his other stories that like people don't even realize he wrote, like Shawshank Redemption. He wrote Stand By Me. He wrote all those stories, and people kind of forget that.
Yeah, I mean, his horror sometimes borderlines perverse a little bit, especially
for sure.
Later stuff. Like his stuff he wrote in the 70s wasn't as bad, but when he gets to like the 80s and 90s, he gets his mind kind of went off the deep end, I think. Something in the 80s.
Guys, there's a hint. Drugs.
Well,
allegedly.
So what got me to publishing that was I was reading The Dark Tower, and I said, this is almost a great story. I liked it, I enjoyed it, but it's almost a great story. I said, instead of
Gunslinger is a great book. I haven't read on beyond that, but yeah. No, I understand.
Instead of the POV Roland chasing down the Dark Tower and trying to find, basically his immortality is kind of what he's chasing. What if we had a POV character who was chasing down God? His pursuit was immortality through Jesus and through God. And I was like, all right. So I wrote a short story, which was very, very similar to the Gunslinger book. And
the opening specifically? Or
yes.
That's one of the strongest openings of a book. And it's so different from other fantasy too. And like as I was reading your book, I'm like, he has to have read The Dark Tower, right? I mean,
that short story became chapter 1 eventually.
Oh, that's great, man.
So then I almost ran myself into a corner by having Oliver be in this vast desert. And then I was like, okay, so how am I going to change this? But then I
how did he get here kind of thing?
I visited Utah. I'm like, oh, he was just here. This isn't fiction. This is just now. Yeah.
You could drive to the right place. This isn't a fiction. This is not some fantasy world. This is just one of those states.
Eastern Nevada. That's what it is.
Oh.
So it worked
out. Heck, even out like in Eastern Washington, like east side of where I live. You get areas like, oh, this customer lives in Moses Lake. I'm like, okay. He's like, all right, well, we're turning off the main road. We've been on this dirt road for 50 minutes, driving 55 miles per hour. Are we there yet? Nope. Middle of nowhere, man.
Yeah. And so when I went through the story, I wanted to tell people, hey, rundown places still exist. Like there's some nasty, disgusting places that are fun to explore, I would say. Like, spoiler alert, because the book's been out for a year now, I don't care anymore. when they go to the abandoned World War II factory, or they go to the catacombs, and when they visit these places that are actual real places that many say are demon possessed in many ways.
Well, don't know if you've ever visited the bad side of certain towns. Vegas being in the desert is rather applicable here, but yeah, there's a reason they call it Sin City, man. And like, that's not to knock on Vegas. There are great things about Vegas, but that is kind of the truth.
Yeah.
And it's like that was one thing I really enjoyed about this story was all the places that we got to see in so much detail. For those wondering, this is kind of like what I pictured it to look like.
Yeah. What's fun too is every location I wrote about, I would go to Google Earth and make sure it existed. It's okay. Let's go find this place and use like Gannon's Cross, where Garen lives here. If you zoom in on the only intersection at Gannon's Cross, you will see the 3 buildings I described on Google Earth.
Oh, that's so good. I was gonna say because like there's so much travel. You go on such a journey, especially when he's still growing up, that I'm like, I don't know of many people who have actually been to this many places. So I doubt he's been to all of these places. So it's,
Well, my father was in the Marines, so I never lived anywhere more than 2 years, most of my life. And then even then, I moved every couple of years just to move. So I've traveled a fair.
A lot more than me, man.
Specifically, but
Yeah. But yeah, no. So did that kind of influence part of that aspect of the story, the wandering blood? of his father, so to say.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to lay the seeds too for Garen's book. I think Sarah's still on, but Garen in his backstory, you'll learn that he was part of the IRA for a long time. So these connections he has from the book are from the people he met during his time as being basically a mobster for Ireland. Hey, she's still there.
Yay, Google Earth. Yeah, man, it's great. Like that is a great thing. Like it is something special to go visit someplace in person because like obviously you can learn a lot from pictures and but from what other people say, but it is something special. Like if you like, have you been to Washington State?
Yeah.
It's like it'd be different. Like I could describe to you what it's like going through the Cascades, hiking, and or doing a motorcycle trip to areas of like western Washington and in the mountains. How it feels, how humid it is, how much moisture, how gray it is, how dense the foliage. But it wouldn't really do it justice, would it? It wouldn't give you the smells, the sensation, and such. And so, yeah. Well, I think whenever you can add something like that into a story, I think it's quite valuable as well.
I think it's our responsibility as authors too.
Yeah.
Our job is not to lecture people, but to help them escape and experience the world.
Sorry, Herman. Herman exists, and he has things to say.
Yeah. So Herman, we all have our preferences and our fantasies. If that is yours, I am not one to judge.
This is a safe space, Herman. Just be yourself, all right? I'm going to hell. Hold on, let's see if wait. Ooh, wrong one. Huh. Wonder where the other one went.
Let's turn the fan on.
No. I have lights all over this bloody room, and I have multiple controllers for each of them, and two of them look exactly the same. Now I'm missing one, but it's fine. Oh, but that's fantastic, man. And so, kind of went off track a little bit there, see, you've got this set up. Yeah, man, that's fantastic.
Let's drive your readers nuts.
Oh, if I wanted to, I could put it on a strobe. Wait. I have a strobe function on some of my lights. Oh, bro, it's killing me. Or if we wanted to freak him out, I could make this my setup a standing desk, like bring it up to a standing desk type and hang out with my arm around my lovely Grinch woman back there.
Grinch, that's awesome.
Oh, cripes. Anyway. So your daughter's born, and that's kind of when you started thinking about wanting to become an author or a published author, at least, because you've done creative things before. You talked about being an actor privately and modeling, which is funny, and a few other things as well. And what about your daughter being born provided you with that itch, that need to tell a story like this?
So I wanted to leave a story behind that, in every way, they can look at and my kids can be proud of. And to be part of that has to be the story, has to be, faithful to God, has to be a true story, a clean story, has to have righteous heroes. It has to be kind of a universal message at the same time. So I knew I needed to have a story that my grandchildren are like, man, yeah, my grandpa wrote that. And sure, it's not like a bestseller. It's not like the greatest thing ever, but they have this thing and say, hey, we get $7 a month of royalties from these books.
Now, if you do that 1,000 more times, Brian. Oh, I love it. I do wish there was a way for, like, there are ways for it to be, but I do wish that just simply telling a good, an awesome story like you've done would be enough to maybe provide like a real supplement kind of income, or even a full-time income in some cases. And for some people, it obviously does, but a lot of people I know, especially kind of in the indie space, have to do a lot of things that I wouldn't want to do as a storyteller in order to rake in the kind of cash that you need to make a living that way.
Yeah, and I mean that actually bridges to your subject tonight about writing your true story, the story you want to write. You could
100%.
pretty easily write a story that would sell 1,000 copies a month. Like you could find that niche, you could fill that story in, you can have the busty cover art or whatever.
I could write an anime style book and sell 1,000 copies. It would I have an artist. In fact, I almost did that before, long time ago. But I was like, no, this isn't really the kind of thing I want to do. So,
right,
yeah, like it would make money, but what's money?
Right.
What's money if it doesn't come from a good place?
So I think if an author is going after it with their truest intentions, you know, I'm not afraid to say it as a faith-based thing. God will find a way for you. If that's the story He wants you to share, and He wants that to be your life, He'll make you your life. You may have to sacrifice. He never promised a bed of roses, but
In fact, he kind of like people are like, oh, but like all these people are like it's going to be better. I'm like, have you read that? It kind of promises it'll be worse, probably.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Like if you're living faithfully, it's probably going to be harder for you. I mean that's an oversimplification, but you understand.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you understand what I mean.
100%. I tell my daughters, like, if you're having a really bad day, it's probably because you're getting closer to God, and the forces that are not God are trying to bring you down. So just go through that, and you'll be better on the other side.
100%. And so for this story, was there any pressure from individuals? You don't have to name anyone, but from people for you to alter it or make it less of what makes it your story, so to
Oh
say.
yeah. People are like, oh, why make it so Christian, or why tell the way you told the story where you have Oliver as a kid and he gets adopted, and there's definitely
Some pressure there. Yeah.
pressure. This book may not sell, or the cover is just a gun. Why is it just a gun? Well, when all 12 books are laid out, you understand, because book 2 just has a crucifix and a knife on it. Like, why? Because that's related to the paladin. Book 3 is going to have probably a stethoscope on it. And, it's going to keep going as every paladin and what they do. The books you'll line up and say, oh, this is like somebody who could actual record wrote down what these guys did, and here it makes sense now. So
yeah, 100%.
6 or 7 years to finish it all.
That's a good timeline, man. That's ambitious. I applaud you, man. That's like writing. I don't know if anybody out there knows this, especially a Herman, but writing a book is hard.
Oh, Herman knows.
Oh, I know. He gives me so much crap. I gotta toss it back every now and again.
I need to get with Michael W. Harris and find out how he writes 3 or 4 books a month.
He's a machine, dude. He was my last guest on IronAge Legends, man. I love talking to him because like we have so many values and things in common, but he and I are so different in certain ways. It always makes for interesting conversation. He's talking about, he's like, yeah, the way that I think, I can't visualize anything because it's a condition. My brain, I can't picture anything in my head ever. And I'm like, oh, well, that's the only thing I can do basically. So yeah. But it's fantastic, man. And so, like, I was thinking about other stories, people I know personally, and other kind of more mainstream kind of things. Think about scenes that were, or dialogue that was added or taken out of movies that we all loved growing up. Like a good example of a movie I watched again recently, Blade Runner. The most famous scene in that movie, the Tears and Rain speech, fantastic scene in a movie that I like but don't love. Sorry, guys, but that was written 45 minutes before the scene started shooting, and there were people who were saying they shouldn't put it in there, and it was too. I'm like, but people, they, especially in the context of a movie, there's so many hands in it. That easily could have just disappeared and never seen the light of day, never become a thing. But the storytellers on set, the actors, the directors, everyone, they knew it had to stay in that movie. And there were other books as well, like Tolkien. He and C.S. Lewis were friends, and they had but despite their friendship and their ongoing kind of conversations about stuff, they had a very different philosophy in regards to storytelling. And Tolkien was saying, "Oh, it needs to be its own thing completely. There should be no tie-ins to the real world. It should this is not an abbreviated version in a fictitious world. Like it's not a fictitious representation of something that's really happening." And that's how I think storytelling should be. And then C.S. Lewis looks over. Well, anyway, I got Santa Claus and Lion Jesus in my book.
There's no wrong answer there. They're both great stories.
Yeah, and imagine if either one of them had compromised on what they thought of what they envisioned for their stories.
Oh, yeah.
Like I love Lord of the Rings, but imagine if he heard Tolkien say that and is like, oh, well, maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't make this. Maybe I shouldn't draw on so much my own kind of personal stuff. And
this is now 1200 England instead of Middle Earth in the Third Age.
Yeah. But like, yeah, it's hard to imagine those stories if the vision of the storyteller had been compromised. And then it kind of like ties back into my whole thing I've always believed, and that is God is many things, but he one of the main things in my mind that he is, one thing that I can see and define, is he's a storyteller. And the fact that he's given us our own our all of us people here, just these little mortal lives here on Earth, the ability to duplicate that or to emulate that in our own lives is a bloody damn miracle as far as I'm concerned.
That's all Jesus really was. Like all of his lessons were stories, parables. That's it. He's like, I'm not going to tell you about heaven. But let me tell you a story about what heaven's like. Like, oh, okay.
I'm not going to tell you this is hard. I'm going to say it would be easier to put it at like, oh, what was it, through the eye of a needle?
Through the head of a needle, yeah.
Yeah. And Sarah says, I think Rutger Hauer was divinely inspired for that scene. Oh yeah, from Blade Runner. Honestly, yeah, there's a lot of scenes where I think about that, and or even other things too. Like you don't like we can even talk about it in terms of adaptation. I'll say one, and then you can kind of come up with an example. But think about when they adapted Lord of the Rings. They made certain changes when they made the movies from the books, pretty profound changes in regards to characters, how they were represented, and things of that nature. But I think in a lot of ways it made the storytelling, especially of the movie, more authentic. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Aragorn in the books, but the fact that in the movies Aragorn was reluctant to take the crown and that he didn't want to take the responsibility, it actually made it impactful when he finally decided to do that in the movies. Spoilers for Lord of the Rings, guys, but
he ends up being the king. Ooh.
yeah, in a book called Return of the King. Anyway, but in the books, he wasn't reluctant. He was just kind of not there yet. He always knew he was going to be king, and it was and that character works in the context of the book. But for the movie, I thought that was a very wise choice.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you could talk about your own book or another story that you know of where someone's vision was not compromised for the sake of someone else.
I would stay with Lord of the Rings because if you look at Frodo, between the book and the movie, in the book, he spends, I think it's 12 years before he leaves Hobbiton.
Oh, yeah. Long time.
He's not in a hurry. He's like, this is me an adventure. I don't know. In the movie, he's like, bam, bam, backpack, let's go. You know, so it changed the character a little bit. It didn't take away from the story, and like you said, it made that character a little more relatable. I think because to us, we don't live hundreds of years like the hobbits do. Hobbits live like 90 years. You know, similar to us.
Forgot. Yeah, they are long lived. Yeah.
So him waiting 10 years made sense in his, but to like a modern person, like. What's he waiting for? What, 12 years? 12 years later, go to Fade to Black? It's stupid.
It's like the ring must be destroyed. Eventually.
The ring wraiths are coming. But you've got a decade. You know?
Man, those ring wraiths took a long time getting back. Oh, it's like they take a wrong turn, wouldn't ask someone for directions. What was it?
And like even Bat Sauce is saying how an Arwen be the one who summoned the river
instead of was it Gilgalad in the book?
Yeah, he was like having this. They kind of combine those two characters into Arwen, Gilgalad, and Legolas got some Gilgalad stuff, but it in the book, Arwen's just kind of like this hot babe. More than anything else, that's kind of
the romance basically doesn't exist in the books, which is. Like I watched the movies before I ever read the books, so like when I found that out, that I was baffled that was true. I'm like, the romance is one of the more it's one of the more intriguing aspects of certain really important things in the movies. I'm amazed that wasn't in the book, and thank God that they chose to put some emphasis on that. It added a lot to her character and added a lot to his character as well, I think.
I mean, Liv Tyler looked so good in that role.
It's like, yeah, she walks on the scene and she's glowing. They didn't even have to. They saved a lot of money on special effects. That was just her. You know? It was a similar sounding name. Yeah. Let's see. All Arwen did in the books was embroider a banner. Sarah, that's very important work. Anyway. Hail, Eric Wag! We'll be back after reading to the kids. Sweet. Nice. Eric, I just have one question. Are you reading them your books? Are you, boy? Oh, crap. Oh, that's something too. I there's so many books to read, man. There's so many good authors out there in Iron Agers, and I've read a couple books here and there that weren't my favorites, but I'm not going to review them. I'm not going to put them down. I'm not going to review like bash them publicly for not liking their story, but it's interesting. But there are so many good books out there, and honestly, when I think of my favorites, yours is among them. It's not my number one. Sorry.
Fine.
Fuck you. I don't know.
I don't expect that in the least.
But no, dude, your book is really fantastic, though. You know what it reminded me of in some ways? It reminded me of I think Ted Decker was hit or miss with some of his books, but when he hit, I think he hit really hard, and that really hit me in a similar way to yours. But yours, in some ways, felt even more personal. It really impactful, and I thought it was a worthy story to tell. It had a lot of the cool things that you want out of a book like this, the demon beavers, and all that stuff. And
I love that one sentence has taken off. Like they're in one scene, they eat the floor, everybody falls to the floor.
I love the idea of demon beavers just.
I put demon otters in book 2 just for Lord Otter.
I know, dude. It's awesome. Also, why are there so bloody many of you guys in Florida? So many Iron Agers in Florida. It's like Florida, Texas, and then like Washington's like me and Maji and like one other guy. It's like, but all of us live like 5 or 6 hours away.
Yeah. I mean, I was born in Southern California. I just have no interest in living there at all.
But why? It's such a pair. I couldn't even say it. Oh,
I mean, there's probably like a 10 square miles of San Diego that's amazing, but everything else in California is yeah. I'm not getting into it, but
there are worse things. Imagine like Detroit.
Yeah.
My grandma used to have a cabin up in the northern lower hand of Michigan, and I'm like, man, this is beautiful. Why don't you want to live here? She's like, there's reasons. I got older. I'm like, oh, I get it. Oh, it's like, yeah, not even gonna get into that, man. But
let's talk about writing.
Yeah, talking about stories here, damn it. And so, in regards to formation of the story here, what were some of your leading inspirations in regards to movies, books, people, things of that nature? What were some of the pieces or monuments of inspiration that you drew on for this story? Obviously, a lot of these things come from us, but we are just built up. We are a culmination of a lot of our experiences in some way. So, what were some of the things that you drew upon for this story?
Yeah, almost everything I pull from what I consider incomplete stories or stories that ended poorly. A great example, I used Hellsing for not only Oliver's guns in many ways, but for kind of the action.
The anime?
Yeah, and the manga.
I'm so proud, you weeb. I'm so proud of you.
When I can't remember the name because it's been so long to see, but when the preacher shows up that throws the bayonets, I got names slips my mind. Yeah, I was so in love with this guy from day one. Like he was like, I'm here to kill the Dracula because he's a bad guy, and I work for God. I was like his whole mission. I'm like, yes, this is my man. And then he ends up being the ultimate bad guy at the end because he stabs himself with the nail and becomes the ultimate bad guy. Ah, you bastard.
That's why you don't trust the Japanese. No.
Like it started so great, and then
it's like they ran the race, then tripped over the top of the mountain and tumbled down the other side. Well, oh, bro.
Then the anime had Nazis be the bad guys, which was really weird. Like, okay, let's bring the Nazis in.
Some of the Japan is a weird place, but people who are in charge of Japanese animation are even stranger sometimes.
Yeah. Like
way back in the day, there's a story of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And you go through the first whole season, it's like Victorian England, and it's all that. And the bad guy is very subtle. He kicks a puppy for the first time he gets adopted. The moment he gets adopted by this nice, wealthy family, he's like, "Assert dominance, kick puppy," like right away. Oh, but at the end of the story, it shows the main character. He's all old and stuff, and he's in an airport, and then he finds out his daughter's is married to a Japanese guy, and then someone's like, well, why are you going there? He looks over, he sees it's a Japanese guy, just punches the crap out of him. It's like, I hate the Japanese. What is this story? This is written by a Japanese guy. Oh, it's wild though. I have no idea how we got here. Oh, inspirations. Yeah. So Helsing. Yeah.
Helsing,
Was it Helsing or Helsing Ultimate? There's two, and they're a bit different.
both of them. Yeah.
Answer is acceptable.
Yeah, I like the gunplay option. I like, obviously having a variety of weapons, as you can see through the paladins. Oliver was very much, when I was writing it originally, I had Chris Pratt in mind for the visual. I think he's too old now for the adult.
Is it weird that I kind of see it?
Yeah.
I had thought about that already while reading it a little bit.
Because I kind of take some of his mannerisms, especially in the new Magnificent Seven where he's in it.
Yeah.
A lot of Oliver's pulled from that character, the quick draw guy. Like, all right,
yeah.
do this. Garen was a combination of probably father figures in my life. He's, my lacrosse coach, my father, a little bit of the father from the Boondock Saints.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit of this, all these little Irish influences. All three of these men are Irish influences in my life. So I want to really,
a guy named McCoppin having Irish influence. Who would have guessed it?
Don't say.
So that's something too. I if you don't have to answer if it's too personal or anything, but did you have a family? Like, were you adopted when you were younger? Was that something you did, or was that just something you drew for this character?
Something for the character. When I first wrote the story, I was still relatively new to writing. I think, what is the ultimate hero's journey? Like, okay, orphan, wise and old man, call to action. Yep. Here, like textbook. Here's the arc.
No, I could see it, man. I could see it. Yeah. Oh, it's great. And obviously, you have they kind of even explain it in the book a little bit too. But the 12, you have your 12 paladins, 12 disciples, and all that
12
jazz.
tribes of Israel, 12 months, 12 hours, and a clock. And just, there's patterns to it. Like you said, God's a storyteller. I also view him, George Washington would call God the great architect. So
a really good title. And that's a problem, though, isn't it? Like, all of our little titles fall so short every time. But it's like you're human, man. Give us a shot. It's fine. Oh, but yeah, no, and that was interesting too, because I've talked to one person who helped you or who worked with you a little bit on the book. I won't say their name unless they want it, and I didn't ask them, so I'll keep it to myself. And they are talking about how they helped edit the book a little bit, and they had a different opinion in regards to how strong the Christian themes were in the book and things of that nature. And so, was it galvanizing to have someone kind of challenge that, or was it how was that experience a little bit?
So I wouldn't say the test of faith per se, but the hardest chapter to write for me was where Jesus walked. The whole chapter where Garen and Oliver travel to the Middle East and visit the historical sites of Jesus and get baptized and all these things. So to me, that was not perhaps the quote unquote most boring chapter, because there's no action. It's just character development, a little bit of traveling, a little bit of
story. It was so important, though.
Yeah. It's one of the longer chapters too. So it
is. Yeah.
Right in the middle of the book. It's kind of like, here's the half. So, but I knew that if I did this, it would be quickly my favorite chapter. And it's gotten so much that I have a similar chapter in book 2. Like, oh yeah, and it works out great. And I'm able to describe baptism differently in each book now, because every denomination does baptism a little bit differently.
Well, just like everybody's journey is different.
Yeah, exactly.
In life and with God and with everything else. And
I think the ultimate goal of this is there's no one, outside accepting Jesus in your heart and he's your savior. We don't all get to that final spot the same way, I should say. I'm not saying there's many ways to get to heaven. There's clearly one defined way to get to heaven. But how you get to that defined moment varies vastly across all people.
Well, I'll confess, when I was younger, I thought I was baffled by how many different denominations there were, and when I was very young, I started reading history. It's like, why was there a war fought over the date that Easter should be celebrated, and all that stuff. You start getting into some of the old nitty gritty of that stuff, and it's really weird. But as I've gotten older and kind of thought about it more critically, I'm like, I think part of it, not all of it, but certainly a big part of that is that there are so many different kinds of people in the world, and we're all God's children, and for that reason alone, I think there'll be a lot of different ways of expressing your faith.
Yeah.
And I don't think one exact way is correct and one exact way is wrong in regards to how you, as long as you're authentically letting the Spirit lead you and trying to follow God that way. Yeah.
And that's a beautiful way of looking at it too. Not to just say that, because we don't all like the same movies. We don't all like the same music, the same stories. Why would we all like the exact same way of worshiping? There's going to be variety.
It's like there's nothing wrong with a hymn. I love a lot of hymns. That being said, but I've met a lot of people who enjoy hymns who don't like all that modern music. I think, well, Grandma, I'm talking to you, but she gets down with like the ritual. Like you say this when the pastor says this, and we respond this. This is the exact schedule every day that we go to church, and I'm like, that's great for you, and I'll go when I'm with you because I love you very much.
And if that builds her relationship with Jesus, then it's doing its job,
and absolutely, and those people aren't fake. I think a lot of, especially kind of a newer Christian, they could mistake some of that as judgment. I think, especially in the modern day.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that goes down to a whole kind of different list of things. But yeah, it's so interesting because I think what you've done here, along with Herman, I'm sure you've read his books as well. I've read both of his books.
One, I gotta get the next one. I've read one so far. So.
Which one did you read?
The Sorcerer's
the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, Sorcerer's Stone.
Sorcerer's Stone. There we go.
Yeah,
I got it.
I've read. Was it Almost Marsh? I've read
the Wizard Stone. I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Philosopher's
Stone, the Harry Potter.
I was like, we're not saying it right. I couldn't figure it out.
It didn't feel right.
I heard you for a moment. It sounded like you said Sword in the Stone. I'm like, I don't think that's right. Oh, cripes.
Yeah. I need to reread his. I owe him a review. I went to a review bash last month and did like half a dozen, maybe 10 reviews of books I read last year. They got to get through. And Herman, I owe you one. I apologize for saying the name of your book wrong. The Head in the Stone.
Oh, bro. What was it? I started writing a parody of that book a while back. It's going to be short, and I don't know if I'll ever do anything with it. It was just kind of dumb and funny. Like a late drunk night one night, I was like, haha, The Stoned Wizard, a parody of the Wizard's Stone. It's like this wizard is 420 years old and
he weighs 69 pounds or
something. Yeah, basically. And like I don't mind telling you here, the whole gimmick is that at the end, like, he's gonna find out the package he was delivering wasn't the Wizard Stone. It was like it is, but it was a specific strain of bush, so to say.
Wizard Stoned.
Yeah. Herman says sigh twice. He's
mad because we got the name of his book wrong. I know.
It's all right, Herman. But what I was gonna say is that I think you two specifically and a few others have really you found the balancing act of writing with having faith in your story without the story necessarily, like, the story has to work on its own. It still has to function as a story. If it's I'm very tired. I'm not explaining myself very well. But a lot of Christian, I'll go into Christian, but a lot of Christian fiction goes into this area where they're evangelizing and they're not telling a story.
Most Christian fiction, you'll have like the soft fiction where it's like a woman in the pioneering times is looking for her husband in the expanding America. I guess so much Christian fiction is that. I don't know why, but
I've been told this, but it's a wave I must have missed because I've never experienced it, man. It's funny.
And then, like you said, the other part is written by some wackadoo from Westboro Baptist who just wants to bash on the gays and the Muslims for 400 pages. Like, why? That's not helping our cause.
I applaud him not for doing that, but just for the fact that he's able to do that for 400 pages. That's impressive.
You know
It's
what
a
I mean?
lot of work.
It's just a lot of hate. Like that's not us. That's not Christians.
It's just like the Bible says, judge everybody, right?
Yeah, I remember that verse.
Oh, it's like remember that one time Jesus said to take quick and aggressive vengeance on your enemies? Yeah.
Don't turn the cheek, turn the hand.
Turn the tweak, turn it into a roundhouse kick.
And then
Anyway.
And so much fiction too that's mainstreamed. Christians are either viewed as weak or they get us totally wrong. Like you see stuff like
villainous.
Like priests with I can't remember priests with they're hunting vampires, or Legion where Gabriel goes against God because this drug addict's having the next savior. Like, come on now, come on.
It's or here. Let me tell you a quick little tale that you've never seen in a modern TV show. So there's this cult. The show is about people who investigate or are in part of that world in some form or fashion. And this cult is very religious, and it's very Christian.
It's like
and what drove them to this? The righteous, strict following of doctrine. Ah, holy crap! Haven't seen that storyline 900 times.
Like, did you watch the Castlevania anime?
Yeah.
The church is the bad guy, not the vampire. The church is the bad guy. oh, how original!
That show is so. I have a lot of feelings about that show. Sometimes it's really excellent, and then there's other parts that also were made. Anyway. Holy smokes, man. But yeah, no, it's such a common thing, and it's like we can have both. We can have a good story, and you can have faith in it in some degree or like form or fashion, and like I'll use Herman as an example because he's here, and I want to talk about people in the chat. But in his book, it's like there's different names. It's like the story, like I think they refer to God in that story as the Allfather, unless I'm mistaken. Kind of like Christianity with the trappings of Nordic mythology a little bit. There's an element of that, and I thought that was a real first time I read The Revenant in the Tomb. I was like, that's such an interesting way to do that, because most of the time it was like, oh well, it's like I am Dr. He-Man, Bible beating badass, and this is my action story kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that story. I'm all down for that. But it was refreshing. I didn't think it could be done in fiction to that. Yeah, okay. Herman confirms it is the Allfather.
Yeah,
and like yeah,
the lion is God. So like he doesn't say he's God, but it's the story's there.
In Narnia, it's like he does everything except say that.
Right.
Yeah. I was there when it was written. I was sacrificed on a stone table for the sake of one who was captured by the enemy. Well, wonder if there's an analogy here, perhaps. I don't know. Oh, and then it's like, or you could even go to mainstream too, because like that's one thing I'll say about books specifically. In all like modern kind of forms of media, in mediums of storytelling, I'd say it's easier to find good stories still in mainstream books than it is in mainstream other like video games or mainstream movies, because there's so many different kinds of books out there, and a lot of there's enough that is produced that there are little niches of good storytellers here and there, even in the mainstream. And like for me, one of those would be Brandon Sanderson.
Oh yeah.
And it's like if there's an author that a lot of people in the Iron Age can learn from, it's him. He has a lot of really good writing advice, really good, just general kind of advice. And like if he had started this like 10 years later, he would be like the definitive kind of Iron Age person out there. That's what that's just my opinion, but yeah.
And this is pure production rate too. How quickly and how
the
how
man's
much
an animal.
Yeah.
It's like, by the way, on top of writing Each of my Stormlight books takes 3 years, but I've also written 2 other books in that time. Each of those books is long as the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy by itself. Also, I wrote 4 books without anybody knowing, including my editor, my wife. What? How? I don't understand. Oh, bro. I even made a video about that a while back, but yeah. No, that's something. Oh yeah, that's something. Yeah. So part of the thing that drove you to storytelling and wanting to be an author specifically is in regards to legacy and leaving something behind for your kids, for their kids perhaps, and wanting to leave a part of your tell a story of your own and have that be something that can be passed on and hopefully be good and helpful for someone else. So do any of your kids have a storytelling kind of creative instinct, or is
Oh
that
man, they all do. I'm begging them. They've all written books. I'm begging them to let me publish them. I'm begging them because
that's
they have.
great, man.
So my oldest wrote a story when I think she was 8 or 10. I remember she wrote a story called Bubblegum Girl, and the whole story revolves around this girl that when she chews gum, behind her it rains gum wherever she goes, and like the misadventures behind it. Like that's genius. Like it's a beautiful story.
It's a very creative. Yeah, I would not have. I wouldn't have guessed that power. Yeah, Marvel.
And then
I'd rather. I'll say this. I'd rather see Bubblegum Girl save the Avengers than Squirrel Girl.
Like the people get stuck in it, or it's hard and bonks out their head. Like it's just so cute.
Yeah.
And then last year she wrote a book based on her and her 2 best friends. The tentative title is the pirate, the fairy, and the princess. And
that's a great title, though. Actually,
I think it kind of is. It's like
it's a great title, man.
And it's just the adventure. Her and her 2 best friends are the basis of the characters, and their personalities are the pirate, the fairy, and the princess, and they go on this adventure. I was like, this would sell like crazy. This is so much fun. Let's publish this, even if it doesn't sell.
Also, not throwing shade, but I will point out, anytime like I've seen a teenager or a younger adult write a book, almost always it's like me and my friends in weird situation simulator. I love it and it's great, but it's something I've noticed with all teenage books. It's great, man.
Then my other 2 daughters draw comics all day, and my middle child's gotten very, very good at it. I'm like, please, but they're so shy. Like, please let me publish it. Like I'm about to steal these in the middle of the night and just publish it. But
20 years later, they're suing you. It ends up in the news.
Like it's just beautiful stories, and they're just so shy. I think
they're young too. People are like that, man. But no, that's so fantastic, man. I love that, and like he doesn't write yet. He doesn't even fully. He doesn't even read like complicated real books yet, and so to say. But my oldest, he's turned 7. People at both of his schools that he's gone to recently have told me he's the best storyteller, like in his classes. And they're like, yeah, he has just these really creative ideas and very strong ideas of who they are and what they're going to be doing. I'm like, Daddy reads to him quite a bit. And it's so funny too, because he's such a boy. Like I have all these like cutesy like little kid books, and I like he enjoys me reading him those, and some of my parents as well, because they're great. They love reading as well. But like he doesn't, like most of the time if he has a choice, he's like, Dad, read me more Darrow stories from Red Rising. I'm like, you mean Red Rising? It talks about like an age where people are genetically modified to create a caste system, and there's death of millions across our solar system. Sure, I'll tell you some of those stories. I'm like, I need to edit this down. I can't say certain words. I gotta be careful how I describe this. I'm like, do I need to tell him that the girl has teeth woven into his hair? And I stop. I'm like, when I was 7, I would have thought that was awesome. So I'm going to tell him that part, but but yeah, man, and that's something too. It's like, I don't think you have to be a parent to be a good storyteller, but I think it helps. I think it offers a lot of perspective and motivation. And I think there's a few authors I've read. Yo, hail the Lord Otter. He was our guest number 1 of IronAge Legends. Some of the other they must have ended Star Shatter. That's what it is. Thank you for joining us, my friend. I appreciate it. But yeah, man, I think there is something about being a father that really adds to your stories. It's like it's another aspect of how do I explain this? Like, you have to live life a little bit, good and bad, to be the best version of a storyteller, I think. I
Yeah,
think if you haven't lived enough life, if you haven't gone through enough tragedy in some ways, I think it makes it very hard to tell a compelling story that way. And
and your
becoming a
kids,
parent, there's an element of that in being a parent, I think, as well.
and your kids are going to be curious about life before them, especially your life before them. They say, "Tell me about high school, Dad. Tell me about college. Tell me about," and they want you got to water some of them down, of course, but you got to tell them the stories and relate to them.
And then when they get older, you can tell them the details
Yeah,
if you so want. But
I've
yeah.
started like my 16-year-old. I've started feeding her less edited stories of my life.
Oh, like that's gonna be weird, man. Because like I was just this like cutesy like homeschool kid up until a certain point. I went to public school and got bullied a lot for some reason. I was fully grown in seventh grade. We'll go to like Bonnie Lake in ninth grade, and those kids are just mean, man. Just like calling me names for crap I never even did. And so I did the natural thing, which is to start fighting unrelated adults in the streets for like 6 months. You know, we all have our ways of rebelling. Mine was a little bit different, but yeah. It's like I'll be able to tell her or tell my boys some of those stories, and I'll have to wait till they're older to tell them some of the stories about their mom, but it'll be great. That's something too, man. So do your kids, they take more after you or more after mom?
Oh, it's a mix.
Of course.
We homeschool. We homeschool basically their entire lives. They went to a Christian school for like preschool and maybe a couple grades here and there, just to give them exposure. We homeschooled, so they've adopted a lot of our personalities. My oldest mentally is probably the most like me mentally, but the youngest is definitely physically me. She's the female version of me in every aspect.
It's great, man. It's great.
So, it's a nice mix. The middle one's definitely physically and emotionally and mentally her mother in every aspect. Just a little clone of her.
It's funny too. They tend, like I've noticed, kids tend to change if they're more like one when they're at a certain age. They'll turn more into the other at another age. I'm like, it's so neat seeing all that, and yeah.
You said yours that's a 7. So when my oldest is 7, my middle was 5, youngest was 3. That was my favorite age, the 3, 5, 7. That was the best age. Those ages.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, not that we're not having a ton of fun now, but that's the age.
It is different. It is different.
They're still excited about everything. Like, hey, we're going to go to this restaurant. Woo! Yeah, that's good. Now it's like, hey, we're going to this restaurant. Oh, again.
Yeah. Oh, that's great, man. Let's tie this back into our kind of subject a little bit, because part of our discussion subject today was how to keep the story true and authentic to itself and to you in the telling of it, not let it get boiled down so much that it loses its flavor and loses what makes it, individual. But on the other hand, too, it's kind of tough because sometimes people give you advice and it's really good advice, and maybe it would have been better to go with that advice. So, as someone who's kind of gone through this process already, how did you balance that?
So I had to have beyond just my beta readers. I actually met. I don't know if you're familiar with the author Will Wright.
I am actually.
He's Brandon Sanderson Jr. He's like, right below him. Like I was able to interview his father because his father used to be a pastor at a church I attended occasionally. So we had a connection.
Oh, wow.
Meet up, and I interviewed him about the whole process. And I had other authors I would talk to, other me too. And so I had to make a choice. I said, am I going to write a story? The goal of selling a bunch of books. Do I want to make this my all in? This story has to appeal to a specific audience, have to have a target audience, and go to all the marketing, all that stuff. Or do I want to write the story I want to tell and just kind of let the dice land where they may? I had a choice there.
Mm-hmm.
So after I interviewed him, he and his son leaned heavily in that first kind of like, hey, here's the target audience. Here's where you go. Here's how you sell a ton of books. You can live off this. Here's what you do. Blah, blah, blah. Here's the steps. Exactly. Here's the whole way to do this.
Here's the science of writing novels.
Like, that doesn't sound fun. I think that's my thought. Like, that sounds like a job. I want
and that's the thing too. Like, true. Even if I put more and more time into it, truth be told, I probably would never be someone who lives off of my writing. And maybe you could, but maybe you won't. And especially if you're doing this as just a kind of side thing or as a hobby, so to say. Not that devalues it in any way. It's just you gives you more liberty to you don't have to worry about that stuff quite as much. You can just tell the story as it's meant to be told.
And have fun with it. You try stuff out.
Oh yeah.
Do experimentals. Like I told you about my romance novel, the experiment.
Yeah. I might even pull that up here in a minute because that's awesome.
My nonfiction book, which always every month outsells my Paladin book. Like it drives me nuts. Like I'll wake up, like, oh man, I sold like 7 books this week. I'm excited, and I had 400 page reads this week. Like this is great. And then and no books that has none. And then like 2 days later, oh, it sold 5 copies. Nice. Way to outsell Paladins again.
Damn it. It's like you don't want to be mad about it, but it's like, come on.
Like that book I wrote like in 3 months just to learn how to write a book, basically. Like, let's get out the door, and people in India buy the heck out of it. Like I might
your romance novel or your other one?
The nonfiction.
Oh yeah.
It's sold in 8 countries, most of it in India, but it's sold like Australia, Spain, Germany. It's sold all over the place. I might have done a whole 4 eventually if it keeps lighting up like on a stupid book. Like if you look at the cover, geez. I did it like it's Photoshop. It's like
yeah. It's very
really basic.
I'm like this is like Microsoft Paint with a couple of assets kind of thing. It actually has your name on it too, which is different from your romance novel, which I'm looking at here, which is fantastic. Oh, bro, I'm gonna pull that one up real quick. Okay. It's making me chuckle here a little bit. It's
I'm proud of that book. That's the little book that's fun.
Yeah, look at that. That's a sweet little cover.
That's a nice cover.
Written by Miss Abigail Grace. Never expected Abigail to have a beard so fantastic and pronounced.
If you check that book, she has a bio and everything. So.
That's hilarious, dude. I freaking love it.
I told you a little bit about this, but the book was done as an experiment. Could I write a romance novel about a Christian couple and not talk about sex at all? Just get through this romance thing and not have any sex. And it's a good story. I enjoy it. My wife and her friends are very specific,
demographic.
Stay-at-home Christian wives, very specific demographic. They like it a lot. But it's not going to sell.
Truth, it's probably good. I've seen your writing style. You have a good writing style. I could see it being good, but that is kind of, especially in romance, that's kind of the problem because a story is generally about conflict, and if everything goes well, it's kind of hard for there to be a story there. But I'm not saying everything goes that well, but in a romance specifically, sexual problems or issues of some kind usually have something to do with the conflict.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's alluded to and discussed in this novel, but there's no depictions of sexual acts. It's kind of, I think, the best way to look at it. So more or less, it's really a similar experience that now I'm not saying my wife and I ever had any marital problems at all, but we go through, we go to like classes to make our marriage better. Our church will host classes and life.
Oh groups. Yeah, people would laugh at that. People who don't know better laugh at that, but it's no joke, dude. It's so hard. If everything goes well, it's still very hard to have a fully functioning good marriage. It's such a hard thing to have.
And this book kind of tells a story about a couple who haven't done that, and their marriage kind of gets away from themselves, and they decide to start going to these classes and tell that and follow the story. They end up going
real quick, everybody. Here's the link for his romance book. Let's see if we can get those sales above Record of the Paladins this month.
No, please don't. So I didn't even hire an editor for this one, and so there are some typos in that book. And my wife was my editor. She's like, "Well, I didn't get a chance to edit it when he published it, and so there's a couple typos here and there." And I was like, "I'm leaving it. This is proof in the age of AI. This is not an AI written book."
It's an endorsement. Truth be told, yo, we are joined by my second IronAge guest, MD Boncher, with his name Resonance One. Reminds me of a Black Adder line. Bro.
Jane Austen's a man, a huge Yorkshire man with a beard. Oh, there you go.
Like a rhododendron. Leave it to the author to come up with that line. Holy smokes. Oh, those Resonant One having... Jeez. He always has a plan. You've seen his hats. They're beautiful. Anyway. And so that way you wanted to see if you could write a romance book with those kind of stipulations, and you did it, man. Good for you. It's an experiment. I have a friend of mine. She's a fairly large booktube author now. I'm pretty sure. Like I remember when she was tiny. But yeah, she wrote a book too, but she doesn't really advertise it. It's like it's something that was very personal to her. It's a romance book with a very kind of specific kind of goal in mind, kind of like this. And I think, yeah, she achieves it, but she doesn't think it's very marketable, so she doesn't sell it. Like, doesn't try to sell it very hard. It's just like, if you guys really care and want to know, here it exists, you can check it out. But it's not something I'm going to bring up very often. I'm like, all right, well, nothing wrong with that.
Kuna, give me 2 seconds to plug this laptop in. I'm about to die. Give me 2 seconds.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Save yourself.
And here we have the dreaded water weasel.
Ah, thank goodness, man. Yeah, no, this is going great, man. We have a lot of good stuff to talk about. Great guy, great book. I need to I keep on giving away all my copies of IronAge books to different people. I need to start also, for those who like that kind of thing, you know what makes it really easy to give away your book? Audiobooks. That's something else Brian and I will talk about here in just a minute. Dude, seek help. A vocal coach. Fruit you. Autistic squeak. Oh, for you guys want autistics and a cranky cat. Oh, you guys are ripping me. I love it. If you guys ever saw my Jump King streams when things started going wrong,
I would just turn up the modulation like this and be like, jump, you son of a...
Resident MD. I need someone to read it that I can afford. Resident MD. I'm working on it, man. I'm learning how to use an audio kind of control application here on my PC, and I'm getting advice from some of our best, from AC Pritchard and a few other people, in fact. And I'm going to figure it out. I'm not the best in narration, but it's something I really care about, and I want to be, by the end of this year, I want to have the beginnings of a studio set up to help people afford and create audiobooks. And speaking of the devil, not you, but he's right behind you. Anyway, no. Anyway, enough serious joking there. So, that's something else I brought up. People really like it when you, especially in the IronAge, when you share people's books. Also, MD wants to know, McCoppin, does your sweatshirt will it?
Will it what?
Yeah, we need more info, bud.
Like, this is Roland's shield, if you've read the book. So.
Oh, it dude, that arm. Roland's so freaking cool, man. That's all. I'm like, I love Oliver, and he is awesome. I love that kind of character. I know myself, though. I'm not an Oliver. I'm a Roland.
I had some feedback from a couple beta readers. Is like him only speaking Bible verses is such like a, I can't remember the word they use, but I can't think of anybody who's ever done that.
Gimmick?
Maybe a gimmick is the word, but I love it. I love it because for me,
it's hard to do. Yeah.
When I need him to speak, and he's got to talk, it forces me to study the Bible. Like, all right, I got to find out a verse. I got to read. I got to pick one, and my goal is not to reuse any verse through the entire 12 books. He always speaks something unique every time he talks, and it's getting harder.
That's gonna get really hard, man.
There's a chapter in book 2 where it's Roland's the POV character, and he's by himself, and he meets this Cambodian guy, and the Cambodian guy, English is not his first language, so they're talking, and the Cambodian guy, you talk funny. It's like, well, I've been a stranger of many tongues.
Yeah. That's great, man. That's great. Oh, I love that. But anyway, this is something I wanted to bring up too. I was talking about how I gave away your book. I gave away R.H. Snow's book as well, and so I'm going to be ordering more of those. But that's something I was bringing up too. I was talking to everybody in the chat. I'm like, guys, you know what makes it really easy to give away your books to other people? Audiobooks.
Yep.
It's a couple of clicks, man. It's really easy. Audiobooks are a very easy sell, especially in the Iron Age and in this kind of sphere of indie books that we exist in. A lot of the audience here is men. Nothing wrong with that. It does not exclusionary in any way. It's just the fact. Now, most audiobook listeners are men.
Mm-hmm.
We need more audiobooks in this space. It's a missed connection point there. And I know it's tough, man. I know it's tough. EPUBs are fine, Resident One, but like a lot of people don't read things don't read ebooks. I'm one of them. I'm starting to read ebooks now, but it's very hard for me. It's the hardest way to read for me. And so those are easy ways, but an audiobook you can plug in while you're driving. You can put it on while you're doing dishes. It makes it very easy to burn through books, especially if it's a compelling story if the narrator is at least competent, they will just deliver the story as it's intended.
Yeah.
If they are good, they will elevate the story better than what it is in the written form, in my opinion.
It's a fun process too. Like, I know it's not cheap because I went through it, and you basically have two options anymore. You can do it yourself. Stephen King does. It works for him. He reads his own book. He does his own audiobooks. It's fine.
Yep.
Or you can hire somebody. The process was a lot of fun. So basically I went through ACX, which is the Amazon Audible.
The Amazon one, Audible, yeah.
And what you do is you upload a couple scripts and you say, okay, how much are you willing to pay? They ask basically Amazon. You can put any price range you want. And how much you want to pay gives you that quality of performer. I put my pay range in.
You pick your kind of upper and lower kind of.
Right. Yeah. So about this range I'll pay. I had over 40 people reach out. It's fun. My family got involved. We were actually looking up all the actors on IMDb. There were some legit actors. One guy was on a few episodes of Star Trek. One guy was on The Office a couple episodes. So we had some really cool people.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And they read my first chapter. Well, not the whole chapter, but a section of my first chapter was the tryout. And my family, we all worked together. And my daughters started to hate White. The desert screamed. Like they quote it to me because they hate it because it's the first lines of the book. And they heard it over 40 times from 40 different people.
They're like, it's not them, it's the line. We gotta change it.
And then you pick your top 10.
Wait, it's like McCoppin. What's that first line? White. Across the
White. Across the desert he wandered, gun in hand and coat billowing in the breeze. No one could defeat him. No one!
Anyway. Oh.
It's fun, you know. The kids, they actually picked the voice. The person that did the audiobook, that was their favorite. I liked him a lot.
He did a great job too. He like, you really found, like, part of your book that thing would have been tricky for recording it is all of the accents. Accents are very hard to do, and especially in a book like this, having a person who can do the male and female voices at least competently is pretty important.
Yeah,
and he does. He's not the best. He's not best at female voices, but he does it. He does it well enough, and that's what you need, honestly.
Yeah. Poor him. Melissa was a challenge, and she probably has more lines than anybody else in the book.
She does talk a lot, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's a talker. You know, she's got that Castilian accent, but she's got Italian heritage, so it's a kind of a mixed accent that he kind of worked on with me. Not that second voice you did.
MD. Oh yeah, no, I've talked to MD about this, but for his book it's tough because, like, even the name of his main book, I know how to say it now, but even when I did my live reading, it was bad, dude. I butchered words. But Kiniwazi Saga does not have an audiobook, but you're gonna have to find someone from that part of the world, MD. That's probably the only way you're gonna get someone who can competently read those words.
I haven't tried the new service yet, but ACX Audible is offering AI generated audiobooks now. So
I've heard, yeah.
I'm not a fan, but if your budget's tight, or like in Resident One's case, he's got like some weird accents that maybe the computer can handle that a human can't. I don't know. So
It's weird when it comes to AI. It's really weird. It's like I have my lines that I've picked, I've drawn. Basically, I've taken like the Michael Jackson or biblical approach. It's like be the change you want to see in the world kind of thing. And so based on that, I've drawn my lines in the sand as to what I will and will not do myself. And that doesn't mean I can speak to others. It just speaks to my kind of preference. Obviously, prefer the human thing whenever you can, but sometimes not sometimes you don't really have a good choice. And I doesn't mean you can't make something awesome. I've seen people do it, but at the same time, it's like, guys, I'm like, that's one thing I'm really going to be working on, especially the latter half of this year, is setting up like a studio to kind of do this with. I'm looking to create a kind of small network of people who I can work with to create the best kind of experience that I can, whether it's a graphic audio situation like multicast or just me with some editing and effects. I want to be able to help people like you and everybody else have a version of their book available in audio form.
Did you ever listen to the audiobook for the novel World War Z?
I've heard it's really good. I haven't actually listened to that one yet.
It's as far as production value, is my favorite audiobook. It's fully cast, fully sound effect. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's like there's different levels. You have the basic one, which is just man speaking and reading what's on the page. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing added. And then, like, some people will add maybe a little song here or there, or a sound effect, or maybe a slight background kind of ambient noise kind of thing. And then you have graphic audio, which is like what you're talking about, full cast, sound effects, the whole thing. So. And the Lord Otter says, you have my attention, Kahuna. Actually, if you guys want a fun example of what it can look like for your own book, in the beginning of the episode the Lord Otter was in, the inaugural episode, the episode numero uno of IronAge Legends, I had read that portion of his book quite a few times at that point, so I had a soundtrack kind of prepared, and I was able to read through that first chapter a little bit, and nice. It came out pretty good. It could definitely work, man. There's a lot of potential there. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's fun too. I don't encourage people like Wrangler. Just get your book out of read it yourself. I don't encourage you to do that, because I've heard some audiobooks that are just, it was terrible, but I still love the book. Like Dune, I downloaded the audiobooks. I read Dune when I was in 6th grade just because my mom loved it. So I read it, and I wanted to reread it later. And I got the audiobook I was listening to while I was mowing one day, and the guy doing the voices was terrible. Just terrible.
Occasionally you'll find a book, like an audiobook, like I have Audible and Chirp. I use both of those. And I'm like, sometimes you'll get a book that's like, this is actually not only isn't as good as reading it, it actually makes it worse. It makes me not want to continue. I'm like, that is such a shame. Yeah.
So, but like Resident One said, you do need to have a nice microphone, a soundproof booth. Like right now, I got the ducks and the fish behind me, so they're probably making all sorts of noises you might be picking up. But
you have the alligator wrestling and all that jazz. Yeah.
I gotta tell you, the guy who lives across the water from me here, he's an author too. We met him. His book he wrote is about his alien abduction. He was abducted by aliens. He wrote a book about it.
Whoa,
so
that's interesting.
That house right there with the light, that's his house.
That not that out of or anything. Here's his name, social address, the whole thing.
He when we met him, he's a cool guy. He brought his book over. I gave him my book. We talked and has shared some stuff. He goes, "Hey, July 4th, be here. Be here. They're coming. They're coming to my house." So we were on this back porch July 4th. We stared at that house all night. Nothing. We were here all night. We were pumped. We're like, let's do it. Nothing.
Color me surprised. Anyway, I feel like that guy from that what was it, Top Gear, the British Top Gear. Wow. Anyway. Oh, let's see. Oh, thank you, Otter. I appreciate it, man. And like even Royce, he did that little he did that audio for Herman recently for his upcoming book, The Revenant and the Cult. And that I didn't even, it took me a moment to realize it was actually Royce's voice. He did a really great job.
Yeah,
and Resident, it helps, but like honestly, I think even without a soundproofing thing, I could probably do it here. I have my voice, like my sound box here. Whoa. Oops.
Hey.
Whoever you guys, if you guys ever get tired of my voice modulation, blame Royce. He recommended this exact model to me. But it has 3 different levels of noise cancellation, and the app I use also has sound kind of modulation, and cancellation. So as long as you do the settings right, I might do a little bit of like foam here and there, but I think I could just do it right in here. That'd be fine. But yeah, no, there we are. You're listening to the fishes. I assume so. Living in Florida, no.
I mean, the Gulf of Mexico is like there, so like we just take just there. So
also, MD is asking if you live next to Whitley Strieber.
I don't remember the guy's name. I don't think it's that. I don't know who that is.
Oh man, that's great. And then but you've done the thing. You have the book. In fact, you have several books, but we're talking about the main book for now, the Record of the Paladins. You have your audiobook done for that, and I was one of the people who I got a copy right away, and that was a fantastic listen, man. It's a very emotionally resonant story in certain spots, and it really does work, especially in audio form for me.
Thank you very much.
So I appreciate that. But next on the agenda for you is comicization, I guess.
Yeah. So I had first 2 chapters of the Book of Oliver adapted to a comic last year sometime. I'm trying it again. The first one was black and white. It came out nice. It was, but I think for the comics, I need to lean more market, like get to market. And I found an artist. It's kind of interesting. So I worked with him, and he gave me many samples and some beautiful pages he drew for me. The Demon Beaver video was the guy was the guy I found, Kevin John Jacob. He's actually, I handed him off to Daniel P. Riley. He's like, hey, this guy's great. Use him. And he's the guy adapting the Jedisai novel.
Oh, Jisadai, yeah. I have my copy, dude. I'm excited for that one. It looks so good.
There's a great connection, and I'm glad that he is, picking up that way because he's such a good artist.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic, man.
You probably see me share pictures of like the cartoon Roland. That's him.
Yeah, I've seen it.
His rendering. So
actually, if you can talk a bit more about that, I'll just pull up the page real quick. I just sent. Let me pull up your webpage if that's fine. Let me see.
Yeah.
What was that at again? Was it just recordofthepaladins.com or was it
thepaladinbooks.com?
Okay.
Even simpler.
The Paladin books.
Yeah, so what I'm doing with him is I'm kind of changing the story's pacing and some of the order a little bit for the comic books. I want to have more the stories kind of line up and make a comic book kind of make kind of sense. To me, this is kind of getting way ahead of myself here, but I'm thinking this is like my storyboard for a possible streaming adaptation someday.
Yeah.
When I wrote the novel, I was like, man, chapter 1 and chapter 2, Oliver Pass, Oliver Current, Oliver Pass, kind of go back and forth. I can see that each half being like an episode of the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like do kind of what they did for remember that show Arrow when it was still for a while that was decent for a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah. Like when it was good, that back and forth worked really, really well.
Yeah. So actually I can send this picture to you.
There we go. I think I found it. Let me see.
Yeah, there's a bunch on. I just sent to you Twitter. Yeah, there's a bunch of samples on the website you're sharing right now.
There we go. Yeah, I got Twitter here. Let's see. What in the anime? I gotta cleanse my timeline, man. Holy smokes.
Those actually healthy lungs, they say in Gilded.
No, not healthy enough. The opposite problem. All right, let's see here. I'll see. I should be able to share that picture here. Let's see. No, share screen. I know how to use the internet. He lied through his teeth. All right, here we go.
Yeah. So
ta-da!
Opening of the book, basically, right there. So it can be sampled.
That is desolate, ain't it?
It's a fun process too, because as an author, you have your visual in your head of what the characters and the scenes look like, and you give it to an artist and they do their best. You're like, well, tweak this or tweak that. And at times they reveal things you didn't even think about. You know, like in this case, the guy's got kind of claws there. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I can see that. I can see that. Maybe
on the cliffs above, looking down, it creates a better visual.
Yeah. So I didn't describe him that way, but it came out really good. So
like that's the thing. First, it's adaptation, so things need to be some liberties need to be taken. And you've worked with artists, I've worked with artists. In my opinion, if you have a competent artist, it's better to let their artistic spirit kind of lead them a little bit, even if it leads them a little bit in a different direction than what you anticipated. I find I generally lean towards letting them go that direction.
Absolutely. Yeah, because
as often as they can. Yeah.
Maybe what you had in your brain isn't physically possible for a person to do, so they got to help you out a little bit here. So.
Oh yeah, 100%. Let me see.
I'll send you.
I got that link here. Let me pop open that homepage there.
Here it says Oliver rendering, which again, we talk about Oliver. We visualize him as Chris Pratt a little bit, but he threw maybe a little, because the guy himself is Korean, so maybe threw a little Korean slant to the Oliver, which is fine. Maybe his parents are Korean. I don't know.
It's not really clear that it seems like he's white-ish, Caucasian-ish, but his parent, we don't know very much about his parents at all. So
we know their names. This is funny. Are Neil and Nancy Smith, because he finds that news article at the orphanage when he goes back.
Yeah, and Smith is the whitest name that ever whited.
So fun story. My birth parents are Neil and Nancy Smith.
Oh wow, yeah, that's great, man.
my married parents are still Neil and Nancy McCoppin. They changed their last name when I was 10 years old. So I killed off my parents in the book as an homage to them, but still, it's
that's great, man. Yeah, and look at all this stuff you have on here too, man. You got a couple IronAge submissions. You got a preview of Chapter 1, the book of Ivan and Ivor. Okay, I wasn't sure there. You can buy signed copies of the books, but Roland's Tumblr, Shield T-shirt. Bro, I still need to grab one of those Shield T-shirts. They're fantastic.
Show me your address. I'll send you. I got a box of them.
No, I'm here to
support. Let me give you a T-shirt.
Okay. I won't say no once, but but no, I appreciate it, man. And guys, look how clean this. Can we appreciate how nice this webpage looks? Have this little animation here in the back. You can order the epic novel. I love that you told us it's epic. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known based on these images. Adapting a comic, you got animating the paladin. Yeah. Oh, I love it. Dinosaur. The Trek. I wrote a poem for that submission. Actually, I need to write more, man. I've been so busy with everything else. I haven't taken enough time to write. Honestly.
Did you see the commercial my family did for the book?
No, I don't. I might have.
Click the what to read tonight. Watch that video. It's short.
Okay. Let me see. What's to read tonight? Continue.
Yeah.
Boop.
So. Don't worry, you won't get a strike in this. Is all my music. So I know you, for your theme song, you use Everly Music. Yes,
and he did your song for your commercial too.
Yeah, not this one, but a different one. Yeah, I had him do a cover of a not really a rock and roll song, but more of a kind of contemporary song that I really wanted to hear a rock version of. That I felt would tell the story of the Paladins well. So.
Oh.
You watching the video?
I am. Oh wait, is it not sharing it?
I'm sharing it. Oh, we still see the website.
Oh no, it's not showing it?
No, it's not.
Oh no, that's so funny. Okay. Okay, that's what it opened a new tab. That's what happened. I'm an idiot. You're just looking at me like, what's going on?
He's laughing at something.
Oh, what an idiot. That's great, man. Guys, welcome to the scuff stream. Thank you for sticking around. Nothing but the best here. Oh, I assure you.
The family. What do you want to read tonight, Mom? Eldest daughter?
I want adventure in strange, far-off places.
Middle daughter?
I want action!
Dad?
Ugh. I don't know why, man. It kills me.
Youngest daughter?
I want to punch
Ugh. That's so funny, man.
We had a lot of fun ordering the samples of the clothing too, so you can see they're dressed out.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're the robes. Oh, bro, that's so cool. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, bro, that's so fun. I love it. Oh, your youngest has she's ready. If y'all need to start fighting demons, she's there for it. Oh, how many times have you seen me do that? Wrangler, I've been on your stream a few times. I've seen it enough. Oh, it's fantastic, man. Yo, we've been joined by Skunk's Workshop.
Yeah.
What's up, brother? So much ham, says MD.
Gotta have fun.
Fight them demon beavers.
I love seeing all the same people like in all of our streams. Like, your stream, AC Picture stream, the Drinker Crazy stream. I see them like IronAge. I love it.
The Iron Age is a time, and there's an elements of a movement but we are a community within it, and I love this community, man. Mm-hmm. For all of our little eccentricities and little things, we're not afraid to be too offensive, and we all have. And the thing is, a lot of us can disagree, and it's completely fine. Like I've gone into it with Kikoman and a few of the others here and there, and there's only one person I've met in the group who he and I, it's too much of a.
No names needed. No names needed.
I'm not going that far, but I'll tell you later. No.
People get worked up too over reviews and stuff. Like I know my policy is I'll never on an Iron Age person, no matter how bad their novel is, if I've read it and I want to review it, I'll give them a minimum of 4 stars. I won't drop less than 4 stars because I know people will say, "Oh, this isn't the greatest work ever written. They don't deserve 5 stars." Like I like to put it kind of in perspective of what the person tried to accomplish. Do they get 4 or 5 stars?
Well, yeah, like I think if you're doing an honest review, you have to judge it appropriately, and to judge it appropriately, you have to know what they were aiming for, and take that into account with in regards to whether they actually hit it or not, and then everyone's like, oh, you have to be objective. I'm like, I hate when people say that. No one's objective. Yeah, there's no such thing as objective.
If it's somebody's first novel ever written, and they had like a $200 editor they hired, and their formatting's a little bit off here and there, but I'm not going to give them a 2-star, 1-star review just because it's their first try. Help the guy out.
See, this is why I love this chat. It's just clam, genocide, rocks, and sexual innuendos. It's great. And personality conflicts are just. Of course, it is, man. It's like creatives never fight. I heard someone say that once. I was like, whoa, not in the spaces I've seen, but yeah, no, and that's the thing too. We can disagree, but especially because people in this group, we tend to have kind of unifying goals and interests. And so a lot of the other stuff, it doesn't I don't have to agree with how you eat your spam in order to enjoy your story. If you don't eat spam correctly, I will endlessly make fun of you for it, but it doesn't matter. It's like stuff all these little things they're not worth getting hung up on and creating all this drama. It's like one of the main differences between our community within the Iron Age and Comicsgate. And I'm sure you've never seen drama from Comicsgate people, not once.
Oh no.
Not on Twitter, surely. Black Knight just posted a link in his stream to 2 Italian authors who actually dueled with swords in the 1920s over a creative disagreement. That's pretty metal, dude. Not gonna lie.
That is.
I think if we had to back up all of our creative arguments with a sword fight, I think there would be a lot less creative arguments.
I'm all for it. Cage matches. Let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah, man. Well, we can do some like mud wrestling. I'm down for it. Let's do it.
We already showered together. Why not?
I'm not going to give that any context. Just take it as the truth and leave it at that. Oh, I showed that to someone the other day, and they're like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, first, a lot. Oh, it's great, man. It's great. And then an armed society. Yeah, imagine if we had no arms. It would be very hard. Yeah, never mind. That joke was dumb in my head, and it's even dumber out loud. Anyway. Oh, I'm sorry, MD. Feel better, man. Yeah. And I also don't think Twitter and YouTube. Oh, I also think Twitter and YouTube exacerbates. Wow, I can't read things. Yeah, it's a hard word for me to read right now. People's differences in yeah, of course it does. Because there's an element of anonymity for some people, and then there's the distance factor, and it's made even more distance where, like, it's not even just like far away; it's like over the internet, and and on the internet things only get noticed if they're exaggerated.
Yeah, and only one way communication. Like they mentioned that the Times Square, you had to stand on a box and say your opinion in front of a live crowd. People would shout you down or boo you down or throw things at you if your opinion was crazy. Now it's like, oh, here's a platform and no one can touch me or yell at me and I can ignore them.
Yeah. It's like back in about last year when I was doing all my Hawaii videos. That's what I saw a lot of growth from that period on my YouTube channel specifically. And I had people coming out of the woodwork, dude. Like strange comments. Like everything from like all the prayers and nice things people were saying and like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this to help people. The people telling me that I shouldn't force my grandma to walk anywhere. I'm like, I couldn't force her to do anything. What do you mean? She wouldn't. Yeah, anyway. It's like that. People calling me a fatty fish in Hawaiian and other stuff too. But it's like you get all kinds of people, man. That's the thing. I love it. I love on every video now because of the way YouTube works now. Unless you specify it, there will be moderation on your comment section. So they'll try to stop people from saying certain words. So on every single bloody damn video, I have to go in and manually click that I want no moderation. And they snuck that in there just recently. It just pisses me off, man. It's like, yeah.
I do some videos of my daughter sometimes because they're interested.
You and your oldest reacted to Ahsoka. Isn't that right? I watched some of those. That was. I can't believe you actually watched it.
Yeah. Well, she's a huge fan of the character. She's got the dual lightsabers, and she used to do her hair like the tendrils,
the tails. Yeah,
big fan. She's live action, and oh man, she was like upset, like she was angry. I was like, all right,
of course she was.
Keep your feelings.
Ahsoka, the character Ahsoka is really good, even in like there's the Clone Wars cartoon, and then Rebels, and she's in both of those, and she's great. She's a really cool character. And then the show came out.
Well, here's your outlet, sweetie, and it's interesting. People comment on it, and I don't read the comments to her. I guess that's for her, but her friends will watch the videos and they'll talk about it and they get a kick out of it. So it's a good outlet,
No,
when we did the commercial, because my youngest is in it, YouTube banned all comments because she was so young. I think
so
fine. I mean, go YouTube. That's a first for them, but.
And it's like, honestly, like I've thought about how the internet should be managed, and I've put considerable time with my thinking cap on it. I don't really know what the answer is. I think there's problems either direction you go. Yeah. You're either limiting people's freedoms, but on the other hand, it's like, I know some of the weird stuff that goes on the internet, especially in like areas with kids. Like we don't want. And that's like when my kids are with me, they don't have access to the internet. I never let them have it. It's just too. It's in some ways it's safer now than it was maybe when I was younger, or like you're older than me. You remember back in the Wild West days of the internet. That S was wild, dude. But even when I was a kid, like there was sketchy stuff that I can't believe I was able to find, and yeah.
Even it's almost forced upon you now. Like, especially like TikTok. God, that scares the hell out of me.
Oh, wait, TikTok? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
Dude, I can't. I waste enough time on freaking like YouTube. Occasionally, I'll waste time like on like YouTube Shorts, and then I'll catch myself. I'm like, I'm not even picking video. What am I doing? Hold on, get out of here. I have so much to do and so little time. It's like, why would I waste time on stuff I'm not even picking anymore? That's even worse than just regular YouTube. But yeah, man, no, it's fantastic. We've been here for a while, man. I'm happy to keep going for a little bit. About any other aspects of storytelling, your books, your projects, the future of your projects that you want to shout out, man, or just talk about, or any questions from me?
I did want to ask you. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from the character Benjamin Blau, the Montessori Jew who chases down sex traffickers.
Yeah.
I've had people say, "Where's the spinoff for him?" So I want to get your thoughts on Benjamin Blau, like from the book.
He was there for only a blip. He was there for just a short little minute there. He felt like a real character. The whole old man drinking comments about those. It's like wherever they went, Garen always. Wait, did I say that wrong? Anyway, he always found like some man to kind of be friends with and have like as a companion in that sort of way. Like, I don't know, we can drink and smoke together and talk about the world kind of thing. And I love that. I love that aspect. And I love that that character was that for him in that period of the journey. I think there's potential for a story there.
I got into book 2. A little bit of surprise. I don't want to share in where book 2, but
don't spoil it. I
want to build out his backstory. I really do, because I think it's compelling, and especially this day and age, to have a character whose sole purpose is elimination of sex trafficking. Like, that's his whole purpose in life.
I wonder where you drew inspiration from. There's nothing like that going on in the world. No, not recently. No. Like, truth be told, like the Sound of Freedom came out June 4th last year. I had not seen it until like 3 or 4 days ago.
Terrifying movie.
I was wrecked. I was wrecked like for a day, basically. I was able to bounce, but dude, it was illuminating and very necessary. So it's like I've had aspects of that in some stories I've written before, but I've never like gone fully into it. I'm just like, it's a very necessary subject, but do it well, do it justice, and do it tactfully, I think is really important and very hard thing to do. I think they did so in that movie remarkably well, because
they could have gone dark there easily.
It's almost it's a very hard thing to pull off, and some stories do. Some stories are like that, where it's illuminating that it's based on truth. It's a very real thing, but there are some fictional stories that kind of dive into that a little bit, and it's a very, very rough subject. I don't know if you've ever read manga at all, but Berserk is a very famous story for.
I've read Berserk.
Oh yeah, there's a scene at the end of volume 3, I think, and it's very uncomfortable. It's one of the reasons I can't recommend the show to just anybody.
I think my line for any media in the sense that I will not watch or participate is rape. I can't. I just can't. I can't watch it. I can't do it. And Berserk, even like when they got to the demons show up, and I was like, oh god, can I skip this chapter?
I
can't do it. I just can't.
I understand. For me, it depends. It depends on what I'm reading it for. Like I read a book a while back called The Rape of Nanking. It's a nonfiction book about this barely ever talked about aspect of very early World War II between the Chinese and the Japanese, and it's maybe the most horrible thing I've ever read. Period. And it's like it's as bad as what the Germans were doing to the Jews during World War II, but maybe even worse in some ways. And up until I found this book, I had never heard of it before. It's not talked about, and that's baffling to me. But yeah, I think, but again, I think it depends on what you're reading a book for. I did not read that book for enjoyment, if anybody's wondering. I read that book because I think it was important and because I want to understand history and people, and that's one of the things that I do. But yeah, no, in some books, like I can enjoy some grimdark, but I don't want to read that all the time, and I can read stories with, the R word, like you talked about earlier, in it, but it's not something I don't want to read about it all the time, and I don't want it to go too far into too much detail. I know the detail. I have friends of mine have had it. I understand it. I don't need to be reading that for my entertainment. I think there's ways of touching the subject without showing everything. Yeah. I think there's a way to do that, and that's the thing too. I think that aspect of storytelling is sometimes necessary. Like I've argued with my mother about this in regards to storytelling, and she's like, "Oh, I hate how they just put all this sexual stuff in stories. There's no reason to ever have any sexual stuff in stories." I'm like, I disagree. I think sometimes there's very good reasons to have that subject in a story, even a good Christian fiction story sometimes as well. It's like going back. We keep on bouncing back to Christian fiction. I didn't mean for this episode to be all like that, but it works out, man. You're like, I'll allow it anyway. But it's like Christians are not perfect people, and so every sin on the table, every vile thing ever done in history of mankind has at some point been done by a Christian, and we're just as flawed as everybody else. And so I understand when people criticize Christian fiction for not including that in stories. Sometimes I think in some stories it would have been to tell the story truthfully, maybe it was necessary. I don't know. I go back and forth on it a little bit, but yeah, those are just some of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think you can definitely, at the very least, you can show the after effects of something. You can build up to it. You can say something happened and show the effects of it without actually painting a detailed picture of what happened. Even like the Bible is like, he laid with her. That's how they describe sex. Like, all right, that's all they got to do. Except
Song of Solomon.
Her valleys are lush.
I read that when I was a teenager, and even then, even as the little nerdy homeschool kid, I was like, I get it.
I know what the mountains are.
Or it's like the Naked Gun, that movie. Everywhere I look, something reminds me of her. Two towers. Holy crap. And also, Otter, you are correct. One does not simply recommend. There are people I've recommended it to, but I have to know them pretty well before I recommend a story like that. It's very...
If you're not warned, like the first section is just, hey, this nice medieval tale about this boy who joins this group of warriors, and he's like, hey, demons all of a sudden.
Well, they're like we've been on the Otter's channel, on Billy Hobbs' new channel, and soon on my channel, we are going through it on each deluxe edit, like a volume, one by one, and that is one thing that I will applaud on his part. The very first scene of the very first volume is him being tricked by a demon, and then him turning it around on her and then decapitating her after performing the act knowingly.
Yep.
And I think that's a pretty good primer for the story. If you can't handle this scene, you probably can't. You will not handle anything else that happens later in the story. And also, yeah, Otter, I agree with that. There, like, you can imply a lot. People aren't stupid.
Yeah.
You can imply things very tastefully or subtly, and people will still get it most of the time.
What's that Jim Carrey movie where he's like a TV show his entire life? I can't remember the name of that movie.
Truman Show. Truman Show.
Yeah. They address sex in that show. They're like, oh yeah, they just pan the camera and fade to black. I was like, yes, that's sex done right there. They kiss, they pan the camera, and they fade to black.
Or like in the old movies, it's like, let's think of something subtle to represent sex since we can't show it in the film. Train going into a tunnel. Holy. That kills me. That one, out of all the things they used to do, that one made me laugh the most. That was beautiful.
I'm not quite a train.
Speak for yourself, son. Got a lot of torque. Anyway. Oh, I don't know what just happened to this conversation. It's beautiful, though. Oh, holy smokes. But yeah, man. Yeah, no, thank you so much for being on the show here with me, agreeing to do this show and share your work and sharing conversation. And I really, this show is the thing I'm maybe most excited for in regards to my social media kind of influence and my channel and what I'm trying to do here, because I have stories I want to tell and stories I need to continue write and, in some cases rewrite. But something I want to do now, then, and forever is edify, uplift, and showcase people and stories like you and your story to the world, because I think you guys have important stories to tell. And anyone who I think has done that well and has earned my respect as a person and as a storyteller, anyone like that is welcome on this show. And I'm honored that you were agreed to be here on episode 4, honestly.
Thank you for having me.
Well, of course, man.
This is so much fun.
No, it's a great time, man. All right. So anything else, anyone you want to shout out, anything, any other last minute questions, anything you want to talk about before we call it here for tonight?
No, I just want to encourage anybody listening to just write their story. Doesn't matter what it is. If you got a story and you write it down, it doesn't have to be a novel. It can be a comic. It can be a short video. It can be whatever. Just get your story out there. And then
100%.
even if your first story sucks, write your second story.
It will, spoiler, it will suck at first. It should.
And just keep writing. Don't let the world tell you your story is not what you want. Just keep pushing it out there. And if you're passionate about it, good things will happen to you. You'll sell 7 books in a week sometimes.
Eric Wag. Oh, man. Back in time for the end. Well, Eric, don't worry. I'm not getting rid of it. It'll still be there. I hope you read a good story to your kids, Eric. I have both of your books. So I got one of your books physically and both of them on ebook. So I'll be delving into your books here soon, Eric. But yes. So, Brian, when is your new book coming out? Do you know? Is there a tentative kind of goal or date at this point?
I had it 100% done. Then I went back and rewrote one chapter, and it broke like 6 other chapters.
Oh, no.
So I had to fix 3 more chapters. I know what I'm doing to them. I just got to sit down and do it. Once those last 3 are fixed, I want to do a complete reread, and go through it, and then maybe have beta readers look at it. And then I want to hand it off to the editor. So it might be pretty quick. It might be pretty slow. But this year for sure, I would like to have it kind of done by April, which is not impossible. Depends how fast the editor.
That's not impossible. I'll be impressed if you do, but it's not impossible.
Yeah. So it really comes down to beta reader speed and editor speed. So I reached out to the editor of book 1. They didn't seem interested in working with me again. So whatever. I might talk to a few people, see who wants to edit it this time around, and have fun with it.
Obviously, we both know a couple of people good for that. I have one guy I've worked with. He doesn't. I've never hired him to edit professionally. Just have him look at stories, and I've looked at his stories and gone back and more like a critique partner. But Sybil, he's done any piece of writing I've given to him, he's pointed out 9 ways to make it better in about 45 seconds. And so there's people like that. There's obviously Daniel P. Riley. He's a great editor, and he's working with a lot and increasingly more people as we go along here. It's like it's so funny because like I'll start talking to someone and I'll find out, oh yeah, he also works with me. I'm like, he works with everybody. I had no idea he's working with this many people. It's nutty.
That's the joy of like this group we have kind of building here in this IronAge. This community we're building is, we can use people for editing music or making videos or editing our works, or the resources are around you.
Oh yeah, yeah. And if I'm that's why I want to do the whole audiobook thing, because that's something that's missing a little bit in this kind of community. If I can be one of the people who helps provide stuff like that, I think that would be of great value.
You know, I don't know. I don't want to tell you how to do your thing, but I know ACX does offer shared royalties. So if you're having trouble getting started, maybe you can find somebody who wants to do the shared royalty model with you.
Yeah, that too. That could be a good way to do it. Sybil and Billy. Yeah, Billy Bobsack, like our next Berserk stream is going to be on his channel, but he's not someone who really writes very much. He doesn't do a lot of the same, doesn't do projects, doesn't have an active YouTube channel like me or Royce maybe, who talk about other people and what they do. But he has been the driving force behind so many behind the scenes projects that we've done both, like stuff on my channel, on the Lord Otter's channel, like book and manga discussions and things of that nature. And there are a lot of those little unsung heroes along the way who do that. And even if you're just someone who enjoys and consumes, we need people like you. And that you guys are a really valuable member of the community, and I love that.
Yeah.
There's
Every
a lot
rating
of value
on Amazon helps, you know.
Oh yeah, I have a book. I have a review for your book on Audible, which should transfer to Amazon.
Yeah,
in
I think
theory.
you did.
Yeah, and I'm working right now on my full review, like a more in-depth review where I have a rating and break down things, and yeah, I have a system for how I review things, and I just put one up for what was it, the Black Crown the other day. So,
Oh, what a great book!
Oh, that is a great book. Did you finish it yet?
I haven't.
It's a big book.
I think it's harder for me to read because the POV character is an orc a little bit. So I'm like, this is evil, isn't it? No. So I love that John is so obsessed with orcs. He wrote a book about him. I love that.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And because he's a half orc, and because of the background of the character, it kind of works for exploring the world and the story, because there's so much naivete, but not so much it becomes too irritating. But it's a great method for exploring a world, especially such a lush, rich fantasy world like the one he's created in Allspire and the Black Crown. It's not that there aren't any criticisms for that book, but like I've talked to the Otter he's here in the chat. He and I have talked about it a bit. There's so much to praise in the book that we feel very comfortable talking about our small criticisms of it.
Yeah.
And
first major release, you're going to have things in Mind Dead for sure. I had it's kind of like my lacrosse coach reached out to me because he read the book. He goes, "Hey, you misspelled Pittsburgh." I was like, "Oh, the editor missed that too."
Oh no. Or it's like I used to keep track of all the spelling mistakes and like little stuff like that I would find in books because I know a lot of you guys or at least I'm acquainted with you, and so I'll point it out. And I did so with Daniel with G Sedai, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I know about that one. I left it there on purpose." I'm like, "You son of a gun." He's like, "Yeah, I wanted to prove it wasn't written by an AI."
Yeah, leave a few errors in.
Yeah, it's fantastic, man. But all right, guys, I think we're gonna wrap it up. What I'll do here is to end out the stream. We're gonna say goodbye, and then I'll play a video of the little video I put together for his stuff today, actually, just because I think it's a fun little fun little video, and it'd be a shame not to have it, available. Whoa, hold on. What the heck did I just do?
Lose power?
No, I clicked on the live stream, not the video. So we were listening to us talk about it on the live stream, and I'm smart. Hold on. Get this thing in the wings a little bit. There we go. Grab you, zoom you over here. Boom. All right. So Brian, say your goodbyes. Share anything you want to share.
Bye, everybody. Check out book 1 if you haven't yet, because book 2 is imminent. I was getting good reviews from awesome people like Christina here. So
check it out, guys. Book 1 is a really fun ride. Very heartfelt story told from a real place, told by a real person. And honestly, guys, it's a brilliant book. You need to check it out.
And now, it's time. Keep creating. Be all you can be. Hell! the Iron Age! Taking too long. Shit. There we go. Perfect.
In 2023, I, the Ultimate Kahuna, made a show to promote good stories and honor storytellers. Finding the answers to what makes a story great. They tell stories I think could change the world. And now it's time for episode 4 with Brian McCoppin. Record of the Paladins, Book of Oliver.